everyone, welcome. My name is Sarah. Thanks for joining me for lesson 7 in my online photo series. I wanted to send a quick thank you to everyone that participated and took photos for lesson 6, which was on framing. Some of you mentioned that it was a little bit trickier than some of the previous assignments, and sometimes that's the case. I think we mentioned it once before when we were talking about textures, that sometimes certain photo techniques aren't super easy to see right off the bat. So part of the lesson, or part of the assignment, is learning to look for and see the different things so that we can use them in our when we take photos. So framing is a good example of that. You're not going to see framing every single time you want to take a picture. But now that you know what it looks like, you're able to watch for it, and when it does catch your eye, you know now that you can take really cool, interesting photos with framing to highlight to your viewers what you want them to look at. So thanks again for sending all your images in. It's a lot of fun seeing what everybody sees when they're doing these assignments. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time, one, to take the photos, but then get them sent in to me. So today is lesson 7, and we are going to be talking about filling the frame with different subjects. So what exactly is this idea of filling the frame, this concept of filling the frame? Well, when we take a photo, when we look at our screen, so we have our screen here that we're looking at if we're using a phone or an iPad. If we are using a camera, it has a little viewfinder that we look through. What we see when we look at either the screen or through the camera is called the frame. So it's creating an outline of what we want to take a photo of. We're putting our subject inside of that frame. So one of the interesting things that we can do with our photos when we're taking pictures to make them more exciting or engaging to our viewers is to fill the frame with the subject that we're taking a photo of. So what exactly does that look like? Well, why don't we take a look at a few examples where we can see exactly what filling the frame with your subject looks like. Okay, so here's our first example. Here I have a yellow jug, and I really wanted to highlight just the yellow jug. So what I did was I got closer and I filled the frame with just the jug. So by highlighting the jug, I'm telling the viewer this photo is just about the jug. There's nothing else in the photo. Our next example is what you can do with multiples of the same subject. So here I have a bunch of puzzle pieces, and I really liked how they were all kinds of colors and they were laying on the table. So I decided to take a photo where I filled the frame with the puzzle pieces. And to do that, I had to get a bit closer to the subject to fill the frame with all of the pieces. Our next example is a food example. I really liked this pizza and I wanted to show off all the yumminess of it. So I decided to get as close as I could to the pizza in order to fill the frame with that pizza. So we've got the basil leaves on top, we've got the sauce and the cheese. By getting close to the pizza and filling the frame with just the pizza, what I'm doing is I'm creating a really interesting photo. I'm drawing the viewer into that pizza. Here's an example of 3 subjects. I have 3 perfume bottles, and what I've done is I filled the frame. So I haven't put anything else in my photo. I just focused in on the 3 perfume bottles. And then I took a photo of the single perfume bottle. So you can see how you can fill the frame with single subjects, and you can also fill the frame with multiple subjects. In each case, what you want to do is get as much of the subject in the frame, so make your photo as much about the subject, and then what happens is the subject becomes larger in the photo, and it tells the viewer that that's what you want them to take a look at. Here's an example of a wall decal that I have in one of my rooms. I really liked how the shadows were coming off of it, so I took a couple of photos. The first one being the single decal. So I got close again because I wanted to just show one of them, and it fills the frame. There's nothing else in this photo that I want you to look at. I just want you to look at the decal. Then I stepped farther back in order to show off all of the decals that are on the wall. So what I did was I moved back in that I'm highlighting all of the decals that I want the viewer to look at. So it creates a more interesting photo. It's more engaging because there's lots of the same thing that the viewer can look at. Here is an example of a rectangle that is part of a piece of artwork that I have on one of my other walls. What I did was I got close again because I wanted to highlight this single rectangle. And I filled the frame as much as I can with the rectangle so that it simplifies the image, and the image, which is the rectangle, becomes larger in the photo. And then when I pull back and I want to show off more of the piece of artwork, what I've done is I've taken a few steps back and I've taken a photo of multiple rectangles and squares. So again, I'm choosing either a single subject or multiple subjects so that I can tell the viewer what I want to highlight and what I want to showcase. Here's another example of a single subject. I have a mailbox. And what I did was, again, get closer so that I can focus in on just the single subject. It becomes larger in the photo, and therefore, the person looking at the photo knows that this photo is all about the mailbox. You can also use filling the frame in an abstract sense. Now, if you guys remember, abstract happens when we have a photo where we may not be able to tell exactly what it is. In this case, these are multiple dials on a computer board that I took a photo of. I really liked how there were all kinds of buttons, and I got close so that I could put all of them in my photo so that the photo is just about the buttons. Now, you can also practice filling the frame with things that are outside, so things maybe in nature. Here I have one of the roses that is on one of my rose bushes. Now, there were lots of roses on this bush, but I decided I really liked the single rose. It was really big and really pink, which I really liked the pink rose. So I got close to the rose and filled the frame to make it bigger in the photo so that the photo was just about the rose. So one of the great things about the technique filling the frame with your subject is that it's open for interpretation by you, the photographer. You get to decide what it is and how you use the technique. You can use lines or shapes. You can use colors or textures. It's up to you to use what you're seeing for how you want to use it when you're filling the frame with your subject. Now, the other thing to sort of point out and always remember, it's kind of a running theme through all of these lessons, is that your point of view or your angle of view is always super important when you're taking photos, and especially so when you're filling the frame. You may notice that you have to kind of try out different viewpoints to see what's going to give you the best picture of the subject that you want to take a photo of. So you might have to get up high, or you might have to crouch down low, or you might have to move a little bit closer or farther away in order to get as much or as little of the subject into your frame so that you're filling the frame with that subject. One of the things that I love when I go out and I take photos, especially when I'm using the technique of filling the frame with my subject, is that I get to be creative and I get to explore. So usually what happens is that I see something that I want to take a photo of, and I sort of start off with the photo that I initially see when I see the subject. But then I experiment a little bit. So this is again where changing your viewpoint comes into play. So I'm always trying out, I'm exploring, I'm moving left, I'm moving right, I'm getting closer, or maybe I'm crouching down and getting closer. I'm trying out all of these different viewpoints, taking photos, and what usually happens is I'll get what I like to call a happy accident. So this is what happens when I sort of have a picture in my head of what I want to take a photo of, but then by exploring, I open my senses up to seeing things differently, and I usually get a really great photo that I initially didn't even think of. But by exploring, I was able to land on that happy accident and get a really great photo that I'm super excited to share with everybody. All right, so your assignment for this week is to get out and practice taking photos where you are filling the frame with your subject. And I want you guys to use subjects that you like taking photos of. So it's really up to you guys what you want to take photos of. The only requirement is that you practice filling the frame with that subject. So maybe you're into baking and you've got some cupcakes that you've just made. Practice taking a photo where you are just using a single cupcake. Fill the frame with just that one, and then try taking photos where you fill the frame with multiple cupcakes. Maybe you're going outside and you're in the forest and there's all kinds of really cool branches. Try taking a photo where you fill the frame with a single branch, and then try taking a photo where you fill the frame with multiple branches. So the idea is to practice seeing what filling the frame with your subject does to your photos. So take some time this week to get out, explore, try taking photos where you are filling the frame with the subject. And then when you are finished, what I'd like you to do is to go through all of your photos and pick 5 of your favorites. And then if you're participating, you can email them into me and I will add them to our weekly slideshow. So next week is going to be our final class in this series. We've got one more topic to cover. I wanted to thank everyone for tuning in so far. I hope you guys have a lot of fun practicing the new technique of filling the frame. Experiment, get out there, try different ways, try different viewpoints for how you're looking at things. And we'll see you again next week for the final lesson, which is going to be lesson 8. Talk to you soon, guys. Bye.